Please don't do that.
Bill hates having a talk on his podcast. Go figure.
It's true.
All right, guys, welcome to episode 34 of the Fantasy Timeline, a proud member of the Dynasty Addicts Podcast Network. Bill, man, how you doing?
Good. Excited for Scott Fishbowl. Have my order in for Avatar, and excited to see what that looks like. I gave them creative license to do what they wanted, and we'll see what happens. I'm in the muscle figures division, so we'll see what happens. And speaking of that, our guest showing off his pipes earlier in the week.
So Bill, with a professional segue here, talking about muscly men.
That's as good as it gets for me. So.
I called him the Godfather of the Podathon, Sal Leto. Sal, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Being the Godfather of anything sounds great. It's good to be here with you guys tonight, guys. I've done. We were talking how many pods I've done over the last 2 weeks. This will be the final stop on my SFB Podathon promotion tour. So I'm glad to be here with you guys.
Look at that. We got him prime time, the main event, the last stop on the tour. That's pretty cool. Yeah, man, I've heard you everywhere. Trade Addicts, the GOAT Network, pods I haven't even heard of. I think you're doing like pods in like Japan and China and stuff. You're all over the place, bro. But obviously, I mean, it's for something so awesome like the SFB Podathon. So we're going to talk obviously a lot about the Podathon and Scott Fishbowl, but how we always start this gig is by talking about the news. And obviously, Sal, unfortunately, you've probably talked about this about 40 times already, but for the people listening and for me and Bill, Cam Newton goes to New England. So I'm assuming everyone is saying they're going to win a Super Bowl now, right, Bill? Isn't that what's going to happen?
It's interesting to see the reactions of people. It's like it's very much people are like, oh, you better start buying N'Keal Harry now, or you better start buying, oh, James White's going to be amazing, Sony Michel. And then you hear the complete opposite, like, don't even touch these guys. Everything got worse. It's pretty interesting, just how different some people view it. I'm not too excited about it personally. I mean, I hope he's healthy. If he's healthy, then, I mean, that will be a lot of fun to watch. I'm just not sure he's healthy. I guess I have to see it to believe it. And so I'm kind of hands off at the moment.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually put out a tweet and I said, half of Twitter believes Cam Newton is going to be QB1, and the other half believes that Cam Newton won't get off the bench behind Jarrett Stidham. So it's kind of the normal Twitter reaction. About half of the people think that it's the greatest news they've ever heard, and the other half think that nothing's going to happen. What do you think about this, Sal? What is your prediction for Cam Newton?
Well, I'm an admitted Cam lover, right? He's one of my favorite players in the NFL. He has been for years. I don't think it's just because he's always been a favorite player of my son's, growing up. It's just a guy I like his style. I like the way he plays, and I had him as a rookie in a Superflex league, and he was fantastic as my second quarterback that year, along with Eli Manning being my first quarterback that year. When Eli had a good year back when he was actually doing well in that offense. But I think it's an uptick for the weapons. Is it an amazing, forget about it, all these guys are through the roof uptick? No. He's an upgrade over Jarrett Stidham just because the guy is, 30 to 31 years old is kind of the prime age for a quarterback. Now, a running quarterback, mind you, whose maybe best years are behind him with those legs, and he's had multiple shoulder issues. So I understand Bill not sure if he's healthy or not. I think he's healthy, but how strong is that shoulder, right? I think we see the workout videos that he's posting. The guy is on a mission to prove something. I think he's one of those guys who when he gets an idea in his head to prove something, he's going to be successful. So for me, I like it, but as an admitted Cam lover, so I'll probably look at it through the rose-colored glasses.
So just a side note about Cam, because you love him so much. I was a Lions season ticket holder for 20 years, and there was a game where they were playing the Panthers, and I think it was like 1st and 5, and we're in the end zone, like third row from the end zone. And I'm like, man, I hope he scores right in front of us. And he of course runs it in and does his Superman thing right in front of us. And I thought that was one of my favorite sports moments of just being a Lions fan for an opposing team, because he does look like a Superman, just that big cheese grin and, pissing the fans off. But no, I mean, I've always been a fan of his, and I mean, I do hope he's healthy, because if he is, he's always been fun to watch. And I mean, he is a completely different type of player. And, to be honest, like, part of his injuries are probably because the NFL just kind of, they don't really call any of the penalties against him because he's just such a monster. And, he's getting hit so many times after the whistle, and no penalties are ever called or flags thrown. And, it's interesting, for him. He's always kind of been that guy the opposite of Jordan rules, where he just doesn't get those calls like, Brady or any of the superstars. It's kind of an odd thing. But
it is odd because it seemed to get worse the year after he won the MVP. It seemed to intensify, and he really has been banged up ever since then. But my only question for you is, did he give the ball to someone in your area after that touchdown?
He absolutely did. Yeah. I mean, and that's so cool too, just the fact that, I mean, he makes sure, and even when his teammates score, he'll go grab the ball and go up and do it. So, I mean, it's always to a kid, that's just, it makes their year, but forgetting that football from such a star. So yeah, I mean, he's an interesting guy because so many people don't like him, and I dig his style just because, like, the shit he wears in, like, the press conferences and stuff, like, he doesn't care. He's just gonna wear what he wants to wear. And
have you ever seen the All or Nothing with the Panthers?
Yeah,
I haven't.
So they actually do a background to those suits, and
Okay.
and it's an interesting story with him and his tailor, and he donates those suits. He wears them once.
Okay.
And they're donated after that, and the money goes to charity. So he is a good guy. I think he gets a bad rap because of he pouted a little bit after that Super Bowl, and ever since then he's taken a bad rap with people. But he's an intense guy who wants to win, and he took that hard. It's the biggest moment in your life. I'd probably take it just as hard.
Yeah, no doubt.
So what I think we should do, since Bill loves Cam's style so much, next year, Sal, sign us up for the Podathon. You can put us on at 3:00 in the morning. It doesn't matter. We will dress Bill in one of those suits, and he'll do the whole half hour with the hat and the suit, the whole nine.
It may not be as expensive of a suit.
No, I want you to get in an auction this year for when he auctions off one of those suits in New England. You need to get an actual Cam Newton suit. So
I don't think they'll fit me, man.
Listen, I know,
the sleeves will be going up to over my hands,
Listen, I know a good nice Italian guy. He will tailor that to you, man. He'll ship it to you. It'll be ready for you to go next year on the Podathon.
Perfect.
And I want to have you guys on next year. Definitely be in my ear. Remind me. It does not bother me if you DM me. My DMs are always open, and I accept everybody's DM as long as they're not attacking me. But guys, remind me. Come at me a bunch of times. I will not be offended. I will not be insulted. It's not necessarily first come, first serve, but it builds so quickly.
Sure.
And next year, I might have to switch the overnights to literally 15-minute segments just to get more people on. I don't think anybody would be upset by that because that just means more faces, more fresh faces, more, getting the word out there to more people. So be in touch for sure.
And talking about DMs, Sal, I don't know if you remember, I actually DM'd you after the Podathon last year just to tell you how cool it was, because I had heard about the Scott Fish Bowl for a couple of years, but it was kind of like more of an underground thing for me. It was like, oh, have you ever heard about this thing, Scott Fish Bowl? And people are whispering about it, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not really. And last year is when I really started hearing a lot about it, and I was like, I put my email in, but it was way late in the process, and I didn't get in, and that's whatever. That didn't bother me. I didn't think I didn't think I was going to get in this year. So, I mean, but I watched that thing, and I was like, this is the coolest thing ever. Everyone's donating. I mean, you got, like you said, you get guys like, Matthew Berry and Matt Harmon, but then you got the Ball Blast girls before they blew up, and it's just you don't discriminate. It's not you have to have a certain amount of following or know certain people, or you try to get everybody who asks you to get on the show, which is the coolest thing because that's not something you see. And I literally DM'd you. You probably don't even remember, but I DM'd
No,
you.
I actually remember. I remember your face, Josh. I remember. No, you've reached out to me on Twitter a couple of times, even maybe just regular tweets and stuff. I definitely remember interacting with you. But that's the thing. Like when I started doing this in February of 2016 was when I first started podcasting. We found out about the Fishbowl that year, and it was the same feeling for us. It was the Scott Fishbowl 480 because before they started becoming named 7, 8, 9, 10, they were always the number of teams that were actually in that year, or number of participants. I had that same feeling, right? I was kind of new to this. I had been around fantasy football since the 90s, and I had wanted to write. I had this idea back in the late 90s and early 2000 to get involved in writing fantasy, but I got married in 99, had a kid. My wife got pregnant on honeymoon. We had kids, 3 kids in 5 years. In my life, I had a job. I had a union job, and that was it. It was an afterthought. And I always wanted to get involved in fantasy football. So I continued to play in my regular home league and maybe picked up a league here and there. And not until 2015 when Matthew Berry had this Fantasy Life app came out. And my marriage at that time was going – it wasn't in a great place. I had free time and I was on my phone a lot. I found that app and I found a group of guys who eventually became the Falafel House. And that's how I met Steve and Kevin. And we just started getting popularity on that app. We got up to 15,000 people in a chat room on that app. We were the hub on that app, and it was just natural. It just happened. I couldn't even tell you how it happened, but it was awesome. And we said, well, there's something here. Let's go do a podcast. At that time, it was, of course, Matthew Berry's podcast. The fantasy footballers were still kind of like in their first to second year. Right. They were still developing, but they were kind of well known. It wasn't a big thing. Sigmund Bloom, of course, had his, and we got a nice little foothold. We sucked, but the fact that we were doing it and Matthew came on with us early on, that was really, really awesome. So I know exactly how you guys feel or felt or what that felt like because it was only 5-6 years ago that I had that same feeling, and so it is important to me to get the small shows on because I still am a small guy. I'm getting a little bit more notoriety now, and Scott's been an amazing friend, and Matthew's become a friend. I play in leagues with him. I talk to him now, which is crazy to me because when I did download Twitter in 2012, he was the first follow, my absolute first follow. If I go through my friends list, he's right there. So it's a guy he's an awesome, down-to-earth guy. It doesn't matter what he's making at ESPN, and the guy's making a nice living now, right? Oh, yeah. I've met him in person 3 or 4 times. He's normal. He's down-to-earth. He's real. He DMs me about things that are going on related to the Fishbowl. He's just a regular guy. And if you ever interview him or speak to him, he says that the whole reason he started what he started was because he figured I'm a normal guy and I like normal things. If I like fantasy football, none of the normal guys are going to like fantasy football. And that's what took off for him. So yeah. I know I'm very long-winded when I start talking. I never shut up. But, yeah, it is about the small shows because that Twitter community where we all meet, that's held together by us small guys. Yep. The big guys are there, and they have their presence, and everybody follows them because it's Yahoo, it's NFL Network, it's ESPN.
They all started out as small guys too, you know?
That's right. And we're the glue, and that's why I love having the small people, and I love getting to speak to you guys like this. You mentioned small pods you never heard of. I never heard of them. I never heard of QB List. They invited me on. Eric and those guys, they're going to be on at like 3:30 in the morning. They were awesome. Everybody's got their little niche, you know, and I love being a part of it. This is somebody asked me what's my favorite part of the podathon. It's meeting guys like yourselves because we're just regular people. We have jobs and we do this because we love it.
Yeah, it's so true because when I DM'd you after the podathon last year, so much has changed for me. Not only did I not have a podcast, I didn't know who Bill was at that time. I didn't know at the time that my wife was pregnant with our 3rd child.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I didn't know that I would have a new job and a new company. I mean, so much has changed. And one thing that I never thought would, I DM'd you just to thank you for what you did because I thought it was the coolest thing ever. If you would have told me a year from that point I would be talking to you, I'd be like, nah, a podcast, it's something I'd always thought of but never really thought I'd ever do. So I mean, this is kind of a cool moment for me personally because, from this time last year, a whole hell of a lot has changed. So, but people don't want to hear about that. One more piece of news. Preseason shortened to 2 games, so it looks like they're cutting out weeks 1 and 4 of the preseason, and they're just going to 2. So, just an opinion thing. Do you like it? Do you not like it? Or what are your opinions on it?
Listen, it's been going this direction for a while, right? Especially since the owners have been pushing to get the 17 and 18 game seasons. I think we all get tired of that first and fourth game anyway. They're just kind of garbage games. Nobody plays in either one of them. And if they do, you're horrified because you probably already drafted your team and you're worried about injuries. And it's happened 1,000 times.
Yeah.
So I think as fantasy football players or managers or owners, however you want to label us, it's not going to bother us. That first game is going to probably be a quarter, and that second game is going to be a half for the starters, and away we go. They've moved to non-contact in practice. They're trying to scale all that stuff back, and we're going to probably get an extra game out of it in the regular season. Not this year. This year is going to be really interesting to see what actually happens. None of us want to talk about it because we're all hoping if we don't talk about it, we're going to get that season, right? So we won't talk about it tonight either. I'm making that rule. I don't care whose podcast it's. But I don't. I think it's all good to get rid of the two preseason games, and I hope it's something that sticks.
What about you, Bill?
Yeah, I agree. I think the interesting thing will be that we maybe don't get to see those guys who, those more obscure guys like we were able to in the other years. And so that might be the biggest thing, is where we might not see some of those less known players maybe make a roster, guys like Eckler, who he made the roster coming out, as an undrafted free agent. He didn't even immediately. So I don't know if you necessarily will get that as often this year, at least because of the shortened camp, shortened preseason, and that sort of thing. But as a whole, I mean, as a fan, I am more than happy to not have to watch those 2 garbage games, to be honest with you. And it seems like August takes forever, and so maybe just having the 2 games and then giving those guys a chance to rest and prepare for actual real games. I'm all for it.
Yeah. I was bummed out because the Hall of Fame game is always around my birthday, and this year was actually on my birthday. So even though you don't really get the starters in those games, it's always nice that football is usually back around my birthday. But you make really good points with those the young players, or the guys who almost made a roster last year. I think what it leaves open for, and I think the NFL is really missing the boat on this, there should be a minor league system. The XFL was really on the money. There was actually good football being played in there. If you watched it, and by the way, I was in an XFL league with Matthew Berry, and we tied with the same record, but I beat him badly, and I had more points, and I don't care what he says. I'm the champ.
So you won.
He says that we were tied. No, I was the champ, but neither here nor there. But I think they need to, whether it be called the XFL or whatever it be called, I think that there's really a market for that to happen, and that would be a good way for those young guys to be seen without having to have those veterans put at risk in the preseason games.
Yeah, I agree with you. I want to say one thing because I know he listens. Matthew Berry sent Sal a trophy. That man won the XFL league there. He beat you down. It doesn't matter that you guys had the same record. I don't want to hear it. He whooped you. Just give the man his respect. I know Matthew Berry listens, so I just wanted to, I wanted to put that in.
I'm sure he
here.
does.
Listen, Bill, we're not talking to you right now, okay?
Okay. Well, so talk about what Steve posted.
Yeah, so missed the opportunity to sell guys based on a 3 TD preseason game. And that actually goes both ways. I remember, I think this had to be about 6, maybe 7 years ago. I was doing my home redraft league live at my house. We had the TV on in the background. A buddy of mine had just drafted Jordy Nelson. It's week 3 of the preseason. Probably 20 minutes after he drafts him, boom, Jordy goes down. He's hurt. And I don't even remember if he played that year or I know he missed significant games that year. And I'm just watching my buddy. He's got his head in his hands. He may have been crying. I don't want to I don't want to put him on blast, but I think I saw a tear. So yeah, exactly. You get that guy who, seventh round pick blows up in, that fourth game where nobody plays. And, hey, look, I got a guy. Like, he just scored 3 touchdowns. He's obviously good. And you pawn him off on somebody, or you could be on the other side where maybe a guy that you were really pulling for goes down. But what I think is actually going to happen, and like Sal said, if this sticks and it stays at 2 games in following seasons, not so much this year, but I think you're going to see a lot more of the joint practices that happen. I think you're going to see a lot more of that, just to kind of simulate that type of game speed, and I think that also helps out play callers and stuff like that, because you need to brush up on it, and some guys need to work on it completely. So that I think you might see a lot more of that as well. Maybe not this year with the pandemic going on, but maybe in future years, more joint practices. But that's the news. And before we jump onto what we saw on the timeline, obviously, like I've said, we have the Godfather here. So SFB Podathon starting July 5th at 8 p.m. Correct, Sal?
Yeah, 8 p.m. East Coast time. Yes,
East Coast time. We're both East Coasters, so that's the only time. Well, actually, all 3 of us are. So that's the only time we're going to talk about. But yeah, 24 hours. Is this the first year you guys are starting at night?
it is. And year 1 we did from 9 to 9, 9 a.m. to 9 a.m. And we kind of went off the air before the Scott Fishbowl. No, that's not true. Because year 1 it was 9 to 9, but we did Monday into Tuesday. That's
Okay.
what it was. So we started right before the draft kicked off. Year 2, I figured it'd be better to get Sunday. We have more people at home on a Sunday. We started at noon. We didn't start too early. That way West Coasters could get up. We started at noon and we went to noon, which means we actually went to 1 because Mike Wright, we did 25 hours last year, not 24. We did 25 hours because Mike Wright was like, oh, I want to come on at noon. I'm like, all right, Mike, if you're going to come on, I'll extend it an hour. So 9 o'clock in Arizona, he came on at noon. We did 25 hours last year. So we went 3 hours past when draft started. This year, it fell on 4th of July weekend. The key to having this thing is having it at a time when the draft is happening. I don't want to have it a week after. I don't want to have it a couple of days before. People said, why don't you have it Saturday into Sunday? Because the draft doesn't start on Saturday or Sunday. It starts Monday. And when we decided to do a live show, we knew we needed to be on when the draft kicks off, because this was a Twitter event before it was a Podathon event. And that's where I came up with the idea. The excitement around Twitter, the first 2 years I was in it, 2016 and 2017, I was like, oh, there's something here. I mean, Tim Duncan was retiring one of those years, and that was the only story that trended higher than a Scott Fishbowl that day on Twitter. Not locally, in the country.
Right.
So I said to Steve and Kevin, we got to do a live show, maybe 2 hours. And as the year went on, I was like, how do we take Scott's Word to charity and grow charity? And with Bill being closer to my age, Josh, you're not that much younger. Telethons are a big thing when we were kids, especially Jerry Lewis and the Muscular Dystrophy Telethon. And that was a 24-hour variety show where people called up and made donations. I'm like, okay, Podathon. And I come to find out the word Podathon existed. People have used it, but it popped into my head. I said, let me reach out to a couple of guys like Mike Wright, Matt Harmon, Matthew Berry, people who had come on with us, and they could have been happy to do it. And the following year, year 2, which was last year, I opened it up on a Sunday morning. I remember this. My father had a stroke. He's okay now. My father had a stroke, and he was in the hospital. My brother and I were meeting him on a Sunday morning, going to visit him rather on a Sunday morning, and I decided, let me make the announcement about this year's Podathon. I had it up for 30 minutes, and Heath Cummings DM'd me. And I had never spoken to Heath before. He wasn't on the year before. Him and I had no – he's like, I want to be a part of it. And I was like, wow, this was – okay, 1 year. At year 2, the big names are coming to me. I didn't have to go through them.
Right.
Let me tell you, year 3, this year, all the big names. I got DM'd by Shane Battier. He slid into my DMs. I want to go on. Give me the details. Or give me the deets was what he said. So I gave him the deets, and I haven't heard back from him. So hopefully he comes on. But it's gotten that big, and I got people. I'm still getting DMs now of, hey, is there room for me to get on? And I do apologize to anybody. It's 3 days away or 4 days away.
Yeah,
it's closed at this point. I'm going to try to slip people in there, like my buddies, John Bosch, who I didn't book for a spot. All the guys in the DFPN at work or the DFP network, they're going to probably come on as a fourth host in that hour and stuff like that. Give us a little bit of a break. Right. We'll be there. We'll be awake. We'll be on the whole 24 hours. But I just want to get more and more people on. So, yeah, July 5th, 8 o'clock at night. We kick off with Heath. He's the first guest at 8 o'clock. We usually ease in the first hour and we introduce the show, and not this year. It's Heath, Evan Silva at 8:30, Curtis Patrick at 9 o'clock. Another group of RotoViz guys at 9:30. Then the Dynasty Trade HQ guys are on. Ray GQ, Liz Loza. Sunday night kicks off with such a bang. And then we wrap around to the morning time, and we hit you hard with Berry, Harmon, Wright, Bender, Harris, Zacharyson, Elliot Christ, Nando DeFino. I mean, the biggest of the biggest.
It's crazy because when I saw the Podathon account tweet out the lineup, it was just like heavy hitter after heavy hitter after heavy. I mean, there was no breaks. I mean, people's brains may explode just with the consistent, like, just star power that is on this thing. And it's all, it's all people that, names that we know. And the cool thing is, if you work overnights or, you're like me, I got a 4-month-old. Sometimes I'm awake, in those early morning hours, you're gonna hear, like you said, a lot of those, as you call them, glue guys, the smaller pods that are really doing some things. And, they're knowledgeable too. It's not like you get guys that don't know what they're talking about. You got a lot of knowledgeable guys, even in those early morning hours. And it's really cool because it's amazing how Scott Fish started a fantasy football tournament, and the Podathon has branched off of that. The FC, the Eliminators have branched off of that. I got my my RotoWare shirt on. That's branched off of that. The SFB Avi guys. That's I mean, it's just crazy. And besides that, just people donating. And usually on the show, Sal, we slide in onto your Twitter timeline and pick off something and talk about it. And it's usually a fantasy football take. But I went in a little bit different direction for this one. And, you put out a tweet, and the Podathon has already raised $15,000. At least that was on June 29th. I don't know what the current total is, but
we are very near $17,000. Very near.
And you guys have not even said one word on the Podathon yet. And that's amazing, especially in the climate we're living in right now. Obviously, COVID's going on. People have either not been working or working less due to that. You said you're working, Sal. I've been lucky. I've been working throughout the whole thing as well. But, a lot of people have not been that fortunate. And the fact that you guys have just, like, you set a $10,000 goal and you have blown that away, it is amazing, especially in this climate. And that's a shout out to, obviously people that are listening, but, people on Twitter, people everywhere that just, they understand what it's all about. Listen, being in Scott Fish Bowl is cool. It's my first year. I almost cried when I got the email. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I'm a big guy. I'm pretty tough, but I almost cried when I got that email. And it's not because, like, I can now say I'm in the Scott Fish Bowl tournament, but it's like being a part of this group of people that are doing something big. And it's not just for us or for fantasy football players, it's for people who really need it. And you guys, you're splitting the money between Toys for Tots and the Equal Justice Initiative, which is really cool with everything going on in the world right now. Splitting it between two really good charities that are doing really good things. if you don't know about one, the other, or both, Google it, man. I mean, it's cool seeing what's going on. Bill and I were celebrities for an eliminator, and we told them that we would sell our fourth round pick if our group could raise $50 for charity. And we didn't say who they had to donate to, whatever you feel like, whatever is closest to you. They misheard us and raised almost $500.
Wow.
For various charities.
Nobody did under $50, so that's the crazy part.
That's
like
amazing.
The lowest donation was $50. So, and we actually ended up selling off 3 of our picks just because we were so overwhelmed with what our crew did. It was awesome. So, not only, I mean, there's little things like that probably don't get talked about as much, Well,
they won't even get tallied, and then because everybody's kind of counting, but there's so much ancillary donations going on that people won't even realize, and that's the cool part. It's just kind of it's like this tidal wave, right? Like it's just pushing everybody in this direction, and people, it's the machine of Scott Fishbowl pushing everybody into these charities, and it's just. That's the cool thing, is just to see how giving people are. And, that there's people struggling that are still donating. And that's just crazy to me.
Yeah, it was
in a good way.
Yeah, right. I agree with you. It was kind of Scott's message this year. He didn't open up the Fantasy Cares link for that reason.
Yep.
There's so many injustices or things that are wrong in the world. People forget 2020 started with half of Australia burning down.
Yeah.
That's like a rearview mirror at this point. There's so many things that have gone on just in these 6 months that he didn't want people to just give and just buy toys this year. So what you're saying, Bill, is 100% true. We've reposted anybody who's tagged us their donations to all these other places. And so many other people doing things around the Podathon. People reached out to me, hey, I'm going to give away this Amari Cooper autographed helmet. Do you mind if I announce it on the Podathon? Absolutely. Use the Podathon name in your tweet. Go out there, raise as much money as you can, donate it wherever you want to donate. It doesn't have to come to us. We'll be happy to let you give it away on the show. People reaching out to me to give me autographed Tyler Boyd photos to give away on the Podathon. A buddy of mine who owns an autograph place gave me autographed Evan Ingram, Tiki Barber, Curtis Martin, Joe Klecko, because we're in New York, so all New York guys.
Right.
Plus, people are getting on board with the idea of giving and charity, and it doesn't matter where it goes, as long as it's somewhere that's legitimate and can use the help, and they can all use the help.
Yep.
That was Scott's word this year. I think we're embodying it. And to Josh, your point earlier, the $17,000 is absolutely, thank you to the community. That is the community. We're the face or the front, but that's not our money. That's everybody's money.
Yeah, and it's amazing. I've heard about people starting they're starting charity leagues, or they're talking about donating one of their buy-ins to charity, or whatever the case may be, and that's really cool too. How leagues are being created with the charity message behind it, or people are changing existing leagues to embody that charity aspect of it as well. It's really cool. It's been kind of an amazing ride for the last couple of months, because this is a time right now, in our country and around the world, where we can be kind of down and we can be, sad and angry about what's going on, but instead, a lot of people, and Scott is kind of the head of this, but a lot of people are channeling that and using kind of what's going on around us for good, instead of just kind of sitting back and kind of yelling into the wind. So, I mean, it's really cool. And thank you to everyone that I said before. Sal, I mean, obviously you guys do the Podathon, but there's so many other people that are, doing so many cool things. I mean, RotoWare, the SFB Avi guys, and I'd have to be here probably for another hour to say thank you to everybody. But you know what you guys are doing, and from Bill and I, thank you. It's awesome. So, all right. So we're going to talk about what we saw on the timeline. A lot of interesting things. We have a great fantasy mind here to help us out with this stuff. So it should be a good time. So this one is from Alex M at Dynasty Guru NFL. Most frustrating player to own in fantasy, can be related to a single season or over any period of time. So, Sal, you're our guest. Why don't you hit us up?
Yeah, and I apologize because I did not see you guys want to send me the sheet, but just looking at it quickly, the guy who pops into my head, he's kind of righted this in recent years, but there was a time where owning Matt Stafford was so frustrating on a yearly basis because the guy had all the talent in the world, and this is going back to when Megatron was even there, and it would just be incompletions and interceptions, and then he'd have these amazing fourth quarters, and he'd bring the team back, and at the end of the day, you'd have your stats, and it would be pretty close to a good day most of the time, but it was so frustrating to watch for 3 quarters because you're just like, oh my God, this guy would be scoring, breaking records if he could have the first halves that he had in the fourth quarter. So that was the first guy that came to mind for me. I'm always a big Stafford guy. I'm always saying he's so undervalued. He's underdrafted. So year in and year out, he's a sleeper for me. And I think he's gotten a little bit more, not a lot, but a little bit more consistent as he's gotten older. And I think that offense is going to have a nice year this year.
So Sal, you probably don't know this, but we are the official podcast for Matt Stafford. We both love him. We both don't understand why he is criminally underrated by the community at large. But that's fine for us because we pick him up and we have him on our teams and we're happy. And I don't know if you saw Bill had to mute his mic, probably because he was punching his desk. He's a Lions fan, so he knows all about the Matt Stafford of which you speak. But Bill, who is your guy? Who frustrates you, Bill?
Yeah, so truly the most frustrating year I've ever had of a fantasy player on my team was Amari Cooper in 2018. Like, he did so terribly, and then he has 2 games where he scores 40 points, and it was just like you keep putting him in your lineup because you're like, well, he just scored 40 points, and then he gets you 6 points or 8 points and I mean, I've never been so frustrated because all of your points, literally half of his points were scored in 3 games for the whole season. And that was also the year he got traded. So you lost a game because he had 2 bye weeks,
Yep.
Once with the Raiders and once with Dallas. But that was the worst year to have Amari. And I mean, I'm not a big Amari guy anyway, and that's probably why now. But yeah, that was definitely the most frustrating that I've had in fantasy football in a while.
So you're a Lions fan, so you're frustrated with Stafford. I'm a Raiders fan, lifelong Raiders fan. My best friend is a Dallas Cowboys fan. We went to the Thanksgiving Day game in 2018. I watched Cooper score those 3 touchdowns. I'm in the stadium, and I'm hearing that place go, Coop! We're going, who the hell is this guy? He hasn't done this wearing a black jersey. He hasn't done that the 3 years that he's been in the league. He's gotten the numbers, right? He's gotten 1,000 yards receiving every year, and everybody goes, oh, look at those numbers. He is goddamn right. He's a frustrating player as a fan and as a fantasy owner in that year. And I'm sitting there drinking Jack and Cokes going, all right, let's go, Cooper. Where am I? I thought it was a crazy town.
Oh, I do remember that game. That was a good game to watch.
Josh is a Cowboys guy.
So the guy I picked was OBJ last year because it's kind of the same deal. You look at it at the end of the year, you go, he got his 1,000 yards. He only had 4 touchdowns, which stinks. But then if you look at it game by game, 8 out of his 16 games in half-point PPR were less than double digits. That's rough on a week-to-week basis. You have to win, every week in order to progress and go to playoffs, and you need to score points for tiebreakers and things like that. And yeah, you had some great OBJ weeks, and then you had some, especially during the playoffs last year, you had, I think a 3.9, a 4.5, and that stuff was, probably killing you, especially come playoff time. So that's a guy who I kind of looked at and I was like, but I think it also represents a buy window, even though I think people are catching on to that real quick and not selling. But
and I mean, just the hype in the preseason for the whole offense for Cleveland. Everybody was just basically christening them to be the the greatest show on turf again, and it's just
Which if you played this long enough, right, and you pay attention, you knew that it was going to blow up.
Yeah,
right?
Their offensive line was awful.
I'm all in on them this year, though. I'm the exact opposite this year. I'm buying every one of those guys low. I think Mayfield has a turnaround this year, and Odell Beckham Jr. could set records if he just shut the hell up and played football. So I hope he's out to prove something this year, because as a guy, I'm not a Giants fan, but I've watched both teams here in New York. Sure. I really liked him, and I always defended him, and until it got to the point where you couldn't defend him anymore because he was just being a baby. I hope he really just puts it together this year, because he could light this league on fire.
For sure.
Yeah, and I think the Browns learned from a lot of their mistakes. They got rid of Freddie Kitchens. They didn't try to stick around with him. They realized, he's not a head coach. They signed Jack Conklin in free agency. They drafted an offensive tackle in the first round of the draft. They understood, like Bill said, that their line was terrible, and they needed to fix that. They bring in a coach, Stefanski from Minnesota, who, had experience last year working with two talented running backs in Cook and Madison. And I think he's going to deploy Chubb and Hunt really well. So I think they are going to be fun to watch. And who knows, man, with this season and the way things can go crazy real quick, maybe they are, maybe this is their year. But we're going to go from the Browns, who didn't do so well last year, to the Colts, who actually had a decent season considering everything that happened. So this is from James Newton at Gem Drafter. He says, if Mac gets injured before the season, is Jonathan Taylor a first-round pick? And I don't even think necessarily it has to be that Mac gets injured. Mac could get traded depending on if a running back goes down in camp, or there's an issue with COVID or something like that. But if Mac is gone by hook or by crook, does Jonathan Taylor become a first-round pick? What do you think, Bill?
So I'm assuming this is for redraft.
I don't know. CEH is a first-round pick in Dynasty, and Damian Williams is still there. I'm not saying he's the greatest, but he's a guy that's proven it in the league. So, I mean, you could talk either way, redraft or Dynasty.
I mean, I guess. He has everything going for him, right? He has this great offensive line. He's just, I think, I have to say yes, because there's not a ton of guys like running backs that I would rather have on my team. I believe that he is a great running back. So, I mean, and in a great situation. So, I mean, there's probably only 5 running backs I'd rather have over him. So I would say he's right in that range. Probably end of the first if there is no competition. And if that's the case, if that's how I feel, then I probably need to be drafting him in that range, because they're not drafting him in the second round to not use him. And he's obviously more talented than Mac. And maybe Mac just becomes the third down back in a way, because he caught a lot of reception, caught a lot of passes in college. It's interesting that he kind of went to, he went to the NFL, and then all of a sudden he doesn't catch passes. It's just odd how they use him, and it doesn't match up to what he did in college. So, yeah, I mean, I guess I'm talking myself into saying yes, he would be a first round pick.
What about you, Sal?
I can't argue with the points that Bill made. I mean, I've definitely been a CEH over Taylor guy in Dynasty this year. I think that no running back landed in a better opportunity spot. To Bill's point, they took him at the end of the first round for a reason. I think he does filter. And again, Damian Williams has proven it, but I don't know that Damian Williams has earned the clear-cut title as the starting running back in that offense. I think Mac actually had a better year last year comparatively. So it would have to be Mac being gone. Listen, you can't deny again Taylor's his talent, and he's a beastly running back, and he can play 3 downs in the NFL. So if there's a clear path behind what is arguably the best, I don't even know if it's arguably, it's probably the best offensive line in the league in Indy, I could definitely say reaching and grabbing him in the first round in both Dynasty and redraft.
Yeah, and I agree with both of you guys. I think he's a definite first rounder just because if Mac is gone, he is one of those running backs that aren't in a timeshare situation or stable situation where there's 1 or 2 other guys that are going to be taking a ton of carries away. And there aren't a lot of running backs right now in that situation. I mean, you think of, the big guys, you think of CMC, Zeke, Saquon, and that's kind of where the list ends of running backs that don't have to worry about somebody behind them taking touches, Kamara to an extent. But, once you start working down that list, you see guys that are very talented, but that have sort of talented guys behind them too. So, I think he definitely jumps into that, 11, 12 pick at the back end of the first round in pretty much any format if Mac is gone for some reason. So, I think Bill actually ran away. He's trying to make some Jonathan Taylor trades right now.
Now's the time to act.
Yeah, he realized it, and he was like, "Well, let me get out of here and do this." So, Sal, this is from someone you know very well, Ryan McDowell at RyanMC23. What is the best decision you've ever made related to Dynasty football? Could be on the team or league level, or maybe related to Twitter or website, etc. So, yeah. Sal, you're our guest. What was the best decision you ever made?
I don't think I make a lot of good decisions in Dynasty football. So I'm gonna say the best decision I ever made was answering a DM from John Bosch 5 years ago when he wanted to know if I wanted to be in his power hungry Dynasty league. I wasn't in any Dynasty leagues at that time. I'm a redraft guy from 1992. And he reached out to me and he's like, "Oh, do you want to do this league?" And I definitely wanted to add some Dynasty to the portfolio. And this was an interesting league. So Power Hungry, which is starting year 5, it's a league that actually has superpowers. If you don't know what that means, I'm not going to have the time to explain it to you now. Yeah. But you literally can steal players from other people's rosters based on a superpower. You could paralyze a player for a week. You can swap points. You can reverse touchdown scoring becomes the same equal to an interception and vice versa. It's wild. And so accepting that invitation from John and just listening to some of the craziest ideas that John has about leagues, and none of his leagues are normal. None of them are straightforward. I'm in another one called Supremacy. I don't know if you guys have heard of this, but it's literally 6 leagues in one. There is a traditional Dynasty League. There is a bankroll Dynasty League. There's a single season auction. There's a best ball auction. There's DFS. And all of them are individual leagues, and you win money if you win. But the first person to get Supremacy points in every one of them wins the Supremacy pot. So it's almost like an empire type of thing, but sure. The league doesn't disband. But you got to put DFS lineups in every week. If you forget, you have to do pick 'em every week on MFL for every single game. You have to pick suicide or whatever the people like suicide, but Survivor, whatever.
Yeah,
it is the most involved in-depth league ever. But accepting John's invitation to get into Dynasty in the first place was probably the best decision I ever made.
My God, that sounds like a league I want to be in. And the second that I got an invitation to it, I would just sit in a corner and cry because I would be like, "What did I just do to myself?" But that sounds awesome.
First auction I ever did too, by the way, and it was effing excruciating. Excruciating. I wasn't ready for redlining. I wasn't ready for any of that stuff. It's 5 years later now, and I've done 20 of these things, right, or more, and I know the game now, and I know how to. But oh my God, who has time for this? I kept saying, who has time?
Right.
Waiting till there's 10 minutes left on the clock after 16 hours. What's wrong with you people? And now I play the same game, and I realize it's all part of it.
So I've never done a dynasty auction before.
We're getting you in.
So yeah, somebody's either Bill's gonna start one or someone's gonna send me an invite to an auction, and then I'm probably gonna. Bill hates it because Bill's like, "Why do you always say I'm gonna be the one that starts
Everybody
it?"
always suckers me into commission these damn leagues.
Because I'm like,
not commission. I have no desire to commission. Don't even ask.
It's awful.
I told Bill I'm just gonna keep saying it until you do it. So I'm glad you brought it up, Sal, because it gives me my my once a week reminder to Bill to either find someone to get me into an auction or start an auction himself. But Bill, what's the best decision you ever made, man?
Yeah, I think it was just getting on Twitter. Learning from so many people in one place, and you just meet so many like really good people, and you kind of find the people you can you click with, and you just learn so much because everybody's just sharing their knowledge all in one place. And I mean, this community, we've talked about it so many times. It's just incredible. It's disproportionate in the amount of good people that are in the community and compared to like normal society. So, that's probably just the thing, is getting on Twitter and meeting so many great people.
Yeah, and as corny as this is going to sound, the best decision I ever made was actually starting a podcast. It's something I had thought about doing for a long time. And I was like, I can't do it. No one's going to want to listen to me, blah, blah, blah. And then, I spoke to Shane Manila, who was one of the first Dynasty pods I'd ever listened to, talked to Outhouse. He was actually the first person to ever have me come on and guest on his pod. And after that, I kind of got, I got bitten by the bug. And, both of those guys and a lot of other people, the GOAT District guys, I reached out to them because I listened to them. They were super helpful. And it was amazing how many guys were just like, yeah, you don't need a fancy setup, just get on there, do your thing. And, now we're part of the DAP network, which, Russ and Brian started, which is, I never thought that would happen, that somebody would actually want to pick up a podcast that I'm a part of and throw it on a network. But, that's cool. So, yeah, I met Bill through this. I literally just put on Twitter one day, like, hey, I'm thinking about starting a podcast, looking for a co-host. Bill was the first person to jump up. We talked for 3 hours a couple days after that tweet. And I was like, yo, this is my dude. Like, we talked for 3 hours about straight football. And it was just like, it was like talking to a great friend. And I was like, yeah, this is it. This is who I'm going out there with every week. And it has been some of the most fun that I've had, doing anything that's not, related to my wife or my kids. So yeah, that's the best decision I think I ever made. So
you guys are soulmates. It's beautiful.
Yeah, Bill is my guy. If Bill plays his cards right, he never knows, like
you could
awesome.
And Sal, Sal, you're up on Long Island, and I got family and stuff all over the 5 boroughs. But so one day you might hear a knock on your door. It just might be me there. So
that'd be scary.
I would be
scared because he doesn't have my address, which means
that's what I'm saying.
Hey, listen, with the internet, it's not that hard to find.
Not that hard, but I'm a Queens guy originally. I was born in Queens, so
Okay.
that's where I work every day. So I'm sure I'm not too far from some of your family.
Yeah, my dad grew up in Spanish Harlem. Uh, he moved around the Bronx and Brooklyn a lot as a kid, so got some got some in Brooklyn, the Bronx,
Mm-hmm.
all Manhattan, all over. So who knows? Or if you're ever in the Philly area, you know,
Oh,
I'll
I
try.
have a cousin who lives right in Collegeville, not 20 minutes outside of Philly.
That's hilarious because I used to work in Collegeville. Um, I live in Lansdale, which is probably about 20 minutes away from Collegeville. So that's cool, man. See, listen, Sal and I are gonna be best friends before we know it. But we got another one here from Brad Duff at Brad Duff 9. If you were in the middle of the SFBX draft, 6, 7, or 8, what would your strategy be? I know Sal has the 101, so he might be willing to answer this. Thanks. Yeah, Sal. I mean, Sal is lucky this year. He has to do. He does the podathon 24 hours, maybe 25, depending on if people show up or not. And then he gets to make that 101 pick and then go to sleep. So if you, Bill, what pick do you have?
3.
Oh, Bill has 3. So
Yeah, I asked for 3.
I'm 7. So this is actually I think Brad might actually be 7 too. I think he's in the 107 chat. But Sal, if you're in that middle there, what are you thinking about doing?
The nice part about having a 101 is every time I've gone on a show and people have asked me questions, I don't got to hide it because saying I'm taking McCaffrey is not going to bite me in the ass. Nobody
Right.
can do anything to change
Right.
it. So it is kind of nice to have that. Listen, I've told this story too. Last year, I had I think it was the 105. I'm almost pretty sure it was the 105. And talking to Mike Wright in the 25th hour of the podathon, I went back and watched it recently and saw where I was explaining to him why I was taking David Johnson over Travis Kelce. If Travis Kelce was the fall to me in that area this year, at the 1, 6, 7, or 8, I would take him. He's the one tight end I would take in the first round. Even Kittle and the other guys, I would wait second round or further because it's just the numbers don't lie with the guy. He's every bit as good as any wide receiver in this league. And with the premium, he jumps most of those guys. And if you see the ADP, which I don't put a lot of stock in Scott Fishbowl ADP, but the first round is pretty telling. Once it gets beyond that, it's a little bit – He's going higher than Michael Thomas and Devontae Adams are the 2 highest wide receivers in this year's ADP. So I'm looking either for him or one of the quarterbacks in that range. I don't think there's a chance that Lamar or Mahomes fall to in that range, but it's possible. Some people are dead set on getting a running back, and you're going to have McCaffrey go 1 in 95% of the drafts. I'm in that 101 chat room. So all you 102s later, 103s, Bill, he's going to be gone.
Yeah.
And that chat is Matthew Berry, Curtis Patrick, Ryan McDowell, Kevin, the FF engineer, Rotoviz. It's the biggest analyst. I'm like, oh my, I don't got to do nothing. Sit back and let these guys do all the work. And they tell us. I'm like, this is beautiful. Thank you, Scott. And then you're going to have Barkley and Zeke probably go in the first, 5, 6, 7 picks. So that's 3. Lamar. So, yeah, I'm going to start looking at like maybe a Watson or Travis Kelce in that area. I want to get a quarterback in one of my first 2 picks. And since I can't get one of the absolute top, the only other guy I would consider there if he falls would be probably Alvin Kamara. So, if it's 5, 6, 7, 8, Kamara, Kelce, a Watson-y type of player if they're there.
What about you, Bill? If you're in that 6, 7, 8 range, what are you thinking?
So I agree with like many of those players, but I'm probably going with like Drew Brees, which I'm probably early compared to most people. And I know he's not going to get back to me in the second round, so I can say this, so it doesn't really matter. But his scoring is just so high in this. And, I mean, there's no way he's going to make it past, like, 2-0 something, coming back. So like, I'm just gonna grab him. Like that's what we've been doing. Like I've been doing that in the eliminators. Scoring is a little different, but it's very similar. And so anything beyond like 105, I'm probably looking to grab him.
So I didn't save Drew Brees, and Bill brought it up because one of the biggest things we talked about there from day one when that 101 chat opened was that was the guy we're hoping falls to the 201.
It won't.
Because of those, the numbers don't lie there either. And I think that 3 weeks ago when that chat was made, he was, right? He's not. People have caught on because it's 1,400 people and people talk and the community's getting bigger. So can't argue with that at all. It's a guy we were really hoping would get back there. But as I'm watching more and more of these mocks and stuff, none of these guys are making it back there. No. I did the John Bosch SFB best ball, and the best quarterback available at that spot was Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, so that's pretty heavy QB.
Yeah,
like that first 2 rounds then.
So being in the 107, being at the 107 and in the 107 chat, I will divulge some secrets. I won't put names to the secrets, but I think these drafts are really going to start at about the 106 or the 107. The top 5 to 6 guys are pretty much set in stone. You know who they're going to be. I'm sure there'll be a few leagues where someone goes kind of off the board, but for the most part, you know who's going. 107 is a crazy place. Like, there's no consensus. There are some, I've heard your Kelsey and your Kittle at 107, which makes a lot of sense with the scoring format. People are talking about running backs a lot, but you hear people saying, I'm going to grab Dalvin Cook. I'm going to grab, King Henry. People are talking about Deshaun Watson, Dak Prescott. It's almost like every person in that chat has their own theory about how they're going to attack that first round pick. I would normally divulge what I'm going to do, but somehow, and the odds of this are astronomical, but I'm in the He-Man division, and two of my teammates or division mates, Zachary Tacit Assassin and John McGlynn, have actually been guests on this show before. So I know they're probably listening. So I'm not going to give my secrets away, even though they both pick after me. But I will say at about 106, 107, things. It's going to go a lot of different ways in a lot of different divisions because there's not even it doesn't even seem like there's a majority in the 107 chat. A lot of people have come out with a lot of different names, and it's going to be interesting in every division to see who gets taken at that 106, 107 after, your 2 QBs and your, Zeke, Barkley, and CMC are off the board. Is Alvin Kamara sneak up and become kind of the consensus 106, or, it's going to get, that's when drafts are really going to start, and it's going to be interesting. So
my first choice was to be in He-Man, by the way, just so you know. Lived and breathed He-Man when I was a kid, and I was scrolling through to pick He-Man, and as I'm scrolling through, I come across Cardboard Box.
That's awesome.
It's just so ridiculous. It's so ridiculous that Cardboard Box is even in there. I had to pick it. And in hindsight, I'm glad I did. And I'm going to tell you why. For those of you who are playing in your first Scott Fishbowl or may be playing in a fishbowl next year, don't pick the divisions that everybody's going to want because they're going to be loaded. I picked Bo Jackson last year for Tecmo Bowl for the video game, and it was effing loaded, man. It was loaded. So this year I picked Cardboard Box, and I joke, a guy I actually work with, a guy who got in last year and then got in somehow again, is in my division. And
that's funny.
He must have just requested to play against me, And I'm looking through and I'm like, all right, I don't know a lot of these people. And there's a bunch of fans. And then John Proctor got added. He must have added the last day or so. And I called him out on Twitter. I'm like, I see you creeping around at the bottom, John. But listen, it takes a lot of luck to win a tournament of this size anyway. So it doesn't matter who you land with, really, but it doesn't help when you get in a division like He-Man. I seen the names that are in there, and I'm in a chat every day with Zach, as you know, because we're DFPN brothers.
Yep.
But I'll try to throw him off. I'll try to distract him when his picks come up. Don't worry.
I appreciate it because I'm looking and I'm like, let's see who's. I honestly picked He-Man because I looked at a lot of the other choices and I was like, and I loved He-Man growing up as a kid. And I was like, this probably won't get, a lot of people going to it. And then I saw, when Scott was putting up how many people requested each division. And I was like, all right, I was really wrong about this. I didn't realize, I got in, which was cool. I asked for the 103 and got the 107, which is whatever. But man, I said, all right, let me see if I recognize anybody in here. And I'm moving down the list and I'm like, Zach Reed. Okay. He's picking at 9. And then I go, John McGlynn, he's picking at 12. How, we've probably only done, 15 episodes with guests that like 2 of them are in my division. Like the odds of that have got to be sky high, but it's going to be fun. I'm excited. I'm not giving it up because trust me, Zach does not need any advantage against me. So I'm sure as hell not going to give him one. But it's going to be a lot of fun. So, Sal, if you got time for one more, we could throw this out really quick unless you got somewhere to be.
Let's go quick. Just
spit it out. All right. This is from Drew Kozak at Dynasty_DK. What is the best case scenario landing spot for Antonio Brown, and what is his dynasty value if he lands there? So, Bill, what's the best spot for him?
So I was kind of thinking about this, and the team that I think has like a decent quarterback that doesn't have a lot of wide receivers, Minnesota pops into my head. So that would be a pretty intriguing landing spot for him. I'm pretty sure he won't go there, but if he went there, his baggage is pretty heavy. So I don't think we're going to be seeing like first rounders anymore, but I could see, somebody wanting a real high second. Probably everybody wants the first, but like a real high second, I think somebody would be willing to move them for that. So that's my guess.
What about you, Sal? Where should AB land?
The value, I agree with Bill. The value where he lands, I think in the same division, Green Bay. I think it makes sense there.
Oh, that's a good one.
Opposite Adams, they didn't go out and get a wide receiver for him in that draft, as we know. And none of the other young guys have stepped up. MVS and the other guys are there. They haven't done it. So on a 1-year deal, 1-year prove-it deal, I don't think Aaron Rodgers will be back there next year either. So I think this could be one big blowout. Let's go for it and give him the weapon. Same value, though. I agree with Bill.
Yeah, I'm going to go just because the coach/GM is crazy as hell there anyway.
Dallas? You got to pick Dallas? No, I'm just kidding.
Actually, I'm staying in the state of Texas, and I'm going with Houston. Houston's got a lot of guys who are question marks, a lot of talent, but a lot of injury risk there. Playing with Deshaun Watson, AB just streaking and getting open. It could be kind of the remedy for whatever that trade was that Bill O'Brien made for DeAndre Hopkins. So, yeah, I think that'd be a really interesting spot for him. And, we could always use a fourth wide receiver in Dallas, but, try to, get him somewhere where he could actually get on the field. So
you don't want him anywhere near your young wide receivers.
That is the truth. Nothing has ever been better spoken. So we got one shout out to end this. This is Corbin at Corbin_Young21. He's got a great article on why you shouldn't sleep on Tariq Cohen this year. I'm gonna put the link to that in the description. If you want to, his name is at Corbin_Young21. If you want to look that up, it was a pretty good article about why maybe you should be getting yourself a little bit more Tariq Cohen. But Sal, dude, appreciate you coming on, man. This is awesome. It's awesome speaking to you, and we got to make this a yearly event now. We'll be your last stop on your tour every year, and you could come and kick it with us. But in case somebody's listening, I don't know who this person would be that doesn't know who you are or where you're at. Let them know what you're at and what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. You can find me on Twitter at Sal Leto FF, and I'm a member of the DFPN, so at DFPN also, and the Podathon, SFB Podathon Twitter handle also. We record the Fantasy Football Funhouse with my co-hosts Kevin and Steve. I'm going to be back doing. I did it for a couple of weeks last year just to test out a live Wednesday show called Getting Over the Hump Fantasy, and I'll be doing that strictly live on YouTube and Twitter. And this year, I'm hoping to do it each week with a new guest that just comes on, sits down with me. It's Wednesday. You've already done your waivers. That's done. We're a day before the first game of the week. Let's have some fun. Let's get over the hump together. We'll do a little rapid fire stuff and just have a good time. So you'll be able to find everything I do on Sal Leto FF. And, definitely come out and join me for the Podathon. Join me in 70-plus guests, as I looked at the list today, starting at 8 p.m.
And again, awesome. So happy to have you on, Sal. That is July 5th, starting at 8 p.m. I'm going to be Sal's hype man right now. Be there.
Yeah, boy.
Be entertained. Donate. There's going to be all kinds of stuff that are being given away. Bob Lung is in my chat, and I think he's giving away some consistency guides. I mean, the list goes on and on. But it's all about charity. It's all about just doing good. So, on that note, thank you to everybody in the chat. Thank you to everybody who's listening to this on podcast form. You can thank us for getting to listen to Sal's silky voice for the last hour and almost 15 minutes. And on that note, we're out of here, Bill.
Late.